Um, thank you everyone for being here. I know it was an emotional weekend and a quick turnaround, so I appreciate everyone getting up early. At the end of every season, I always find myself reflecting on the organization, where we're at, where we're going, and I found myself reflecting last night on my drive home and then reflecting more this morning on the way to the ballpark. So I figured I would start with some general thoughts that may be helpful before we get into questions. First, we're going to talk a lot about where this organization is going in this press conference, but I think it's instructive to start by acknowledging where we're coming from. The conversation about this organization has changed dramatically in 12 months. When I was sitting here a year ago, we were talking about this organization in a very different light. Instead of talking and openly asking, where are the bats? Are these young hitters ever going to hit in the big leagues? Now we're seeing a group of young middle of the order bats emerging right before our eyes. Instead of talking about where are the prospects that can help us, the conversation we're actually having right now is, are there players in AAA that should already be here? Are there mud hens, not one or two, but several mud hens that are making compelling cases that they can really help us here in Detroit? And instead of talking about or openly worrying about, are we ever going to have enough innings in a rotation to get through 162 starts after we watch 17 starting pitchers make starts in the 2022 season, we are debating how and where the starters that we have in the big leagues and the starters that we have coming through the upper levels of the minor leagues are all going to fit into a five-man rotation. That's not to say that we have it all figured out. That's not to say that we are, as an organization, where we want to be. But it is a moment in time where we can reflect on both the path and pace that we're on right now, and that we can appreciate some of the good things that are actually happening in the organization, the progress that we've made. I will say that one of the most important things that we did this year to change the conversation in this organization is we got more out of our players up and down the organization. The players got more out of themselves up and down the organization. When I was sitting here a year ago, I was talking to all of you about trying to create this culture of development here, trying to create environments in which players at all phases of their career can come to this organization and get better. And so upon reflection last night and this morning, I was thinking to myself, man, we're off to a great start on that. I think about veteran major league free agents like Michael Lorenzen, who came here and got better. I think about, waiver claim relievers like Tyler Holton, who came here, got a lot better, and put up, one of the best seasons of any reliever in baseball this year, both in terms of the amount he pitched and the quality of his performance time and time again. I think about the waiver claim position players like Andy Ibanez, came here, got a lot better. If you look at his performance since the end of May on both sides of the ball, he has like an 830 OPS since the end of May, and he's playing plus defense at second base, like all under his watch. Got a lot better. I think about the top of the first round draft picks like Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson, who got a heck of a lot better this summer here. I think about, the 19th round picks, the Kerry Carpenters and Justice Bigby's, who got a lot better. They showed up to Lakeland this year ready to work, ready to get better, and they got a lot better. Kerry under his watch and Justice under Gark's watch. And I think about the trade acquisitions like Matt Vierling and Justin Henry Malloy, who came here and in their very first year in this organization got a lot better. Again, it's not to suggest that we have it all figured out. I'll be the first one to admit that we don't have it all figured out. There's a lot of work we have to do. There are a lot of hurdles on the horizon, many of which will take some time to overcome. But at this moment in time, it highlights how, development isn't this abstract concept that sounds good as a talking point. It creates real, tangible gains that change the look and feel of the organization and help us get a little bit more out of the most important individuals in the organization, and that's the players. Finally, I always in these times, I reflect on, kind of where we're going and how we're going to get there. One thing that I think is less obvious that I want to point out before we get to questions is, in order to get to where we want to be, we have to find a way to scale that development. We have to modernize our organization. we have to modernize our operation, and we have to find new tools that are going to help us get a little bit more out of all the players that come through this organization. And in order to do that, we have to make significant multi-year infrastructure investments in this organization, up and down this organization. That is a mission that we have already started. I have, some of these really ambitious projects that we can talk about at length today if you want. But they include, we are embarking on the second phase of our clubhouse and performance center renovation in the big leagues. That's going to help us get a lot more out of the big leaguers that we have coming through here, and it's going to help us sustain those gains throughout the summer. We already purchased a plot of land in the Dominican Republic, and we're in the design phase of a new Dominican academy that's going to make us a lot more competitive internationally. And it's also going to include some development features that are going to allow us to tap into that development the day that these young players walk into this organization in the Dominican. And then we're going to be able to hand them off to Lakeland and then help to both raise their ceilings and accelerate their path through the minor leagues so that they can help us here. Some other things that we are already working on is we're working on a new dorm building in Lakeland that is going to include a lot of development features that are going to help every minor league player that goes through this organization in spring training. And it's especially going to help the young players that are going to populate the rookie ball teams and, the low A Flying Tigers. We're also working on baseball expansion projects in Lakeland. We're going to have a covered field. We're going to have new cages and new mounds that are going to help all of our major and minor league players who come through spring training, and then again help those rookie ball teams and the low A teams. We are about to debut a new team plane that is fully customized with best-in-class features that are going to promote the comfort, recovery, and culture that we want to see. And it's going to help our players endure the grind of a long 6-month season with cross-country flights and traveling what seems like every 3 days. And then we are making very significant investments in technological improvements up and down the organization. It's really expensive. But it's something we have to do. If we're going to be sincere about building this organization the right way, we're going to have to make these infrastructure improvements up and down the organization. They're going to take some time, but if we're sincere about creating that type of culture of development and finding gains within our players, we have to have the infrastructure to be able to do it. And fortunately, we have an owner in Chris that believes in all this stuff, that is ready to invest heavily in this type of infrastructure improvement to be able to strengthen the pipeline of talent that's coming through this organization and build this organization the right way. It's a less obvious part of my job and AJ's job in this entire front office, but it's really important because we are doing a good job with the tools we have, but we need more tools that are going to help us get more out of our players moving forward. So wanted to share that. Again, circling back, a lot of good things going on in this organization right now. We have a lot of work to do, but it was a moment last night and this morning where I could reflect on the positive things that are happening and the path that we're on right now.
Don't look at me. I am not following that. So I'll answer any questions you guys have, but.
Teleprompter over here.
Yeah.
What do you got, AJ?
Yeah, exactly. Next question.
Start off with some of the things that you have to kind of deal with coming up fairly soon. With Eduardo, first of all, kind of where are you at with that? What does your gut tell you about how that's going to play out?
Yeah, Eduardo and Javi are in the same boat. The way their contracts were structured, they have a decision to make. We don't have a decision to make as an organization. It is their decision given the way that their contract has been structured. We don't anticipate any conversations prior to their decision. There haven't been any, and I don't plan on having any between now and those decisions.
AJ, you kind of reimagined your coaching staff last year.
Mm-hmm.
Great examples that Scott mentioned about Ibanez, Bolton, others. How did that play out in terms of how you envisioned it and how it played out in terms of getting guys better?
Yeah, no, it's a good question because I think there's one of the things that strikes me when Scott talks about the less obvious things is like the front and center things, the things you all see, Gary Jones sending runners around third, or Fett walking out to the mound, or anything that I do, it's forward facing, is only a fraction of what a coaching staff does. And so the inner workings of the coaching staff, we were able to build it out, which doesn't come for free and it doesn't come cheap. We've got to make sure that we have enough resources for our players in every aspect behind the scenes, and then ultimately in the cage, in the bullpen, technology. And I, to be honest with you, I'd never had this big a staff before in my managing career. And so when we put it together and trying to strike every aspect of the roster, it starts to challenge yourself on what your needs are and what the expertise you need, and different backgrounds. You kind of used to be go find the ex-player who can come and relate to the current player. That's awesome and very valuable. But sometimes people come from different backgrounds. Go see Robin Lund and his career path. Sometimes it's guys that have a ton of experience. It's grizzled. It's gray hair. It's the disheveled look of a coach that's been in the cage forever. And then you go and get somebody under the age of 30, and Michael Bedard, and he comes in and really anchors a coaching staff, hitting department on our coaching staff, with partners like James Rowson and Keith Beauregard. It worked really well in the pitching and hitting departments as we expanded and challenged them to do the job a little bit differently. So I'm proud of the work our coaching staff did. There's they're player-centric coaches, regardless of the background, and the work ethic's off the charts. So the development, the credit goes to the players. It obviously goes to the coaches. It goes to the organization for investing in all of us, and the routines that we were able to build. And that way, when we got to now it's 6:40, we walk out on the field, we feel fully prepared to play the game, and the results are starting to move forward. So we're still not where we want to be. There's always little things that we can do better. We're going to challenge our coaches to do that. But the foundation of what a staff is all about, I was very proud of the additions, and also the broad way that these coaches impacted the players. Yeah, I knew that question was coming. I mean, the short answer is I don't know, because we need to go through a full evaluation period. I mean, forever, and this is one of the things that Scott has really kind of changed my thought process at the end of seasons, is that it's a false deadline. Like today is just a day that we don't have a game. People call it the offseason. It's really just less of a season. It's just no game season. But those conversations need to happen, and I know there's a great urgency to figure out what is next and who is going to be with that. We're going to do a full evaluation, talk about it. I'm happy with the group, but I'm also always the guy that wants to uncover it. Can we be 5% better? Can we be 10% better? And who those coaches are it's going to be determined as we go. So I don't have an answer today, but regardless, doesn't minimize the impact of this group that we had together.
Going back to Eduardo, if he were to opt out of the contract, would you be open to conversations about a new contract for him? And more generally, last winter you signed 2 free agent starting pitchers. I was wondering, is that a potential item on the agenda this winter, or do you think there's enough internal depth pitching-wise that won't be as necessary going into next year?
Yeah, I mean, totally fair questions. I can't speculate with Eduardo. He's put up a great year. We just have to make the decisions that are actually in front of us when they're in front of us, and that one just isn't right now. As far as the offseason, we have another month that we are going to use. I'm going to be back in the office right after this press conference. Like, AJ's probably going on vacation, but I'm going to be back in the office. Sorry.
I'm not the one that got married last year and took a day off. I worked every day last offseason, so.
Yeah. Ellie's going to love seeing that quote out there. So, no, we have another month. Hopefully you guys have realized, like, we're gonna take all the time that we can to beat up every decision from every angle. We're gonna be active this offseason, and we're, as far as exactly what we're going to do and the specific positions we're going to target, we have another month before we actually have to make those decisions.
In a general sense, Scott, how do you balance being active in the offseason with trades with, like you talked about before, trying to earmark opportunities for these prospects and
Yeah, I mean, when I wake up in the morning, the reason why I'm really excited about this organization is we have young talent coming. We have young talent that's already in the big leagues, and we have more young talent coming. I'm really bullish on this young talent. So anything we do this offseason in free agency or trade, we're going to have to be mindful of, walking the line between finding outside additions that can help us without blocking some of the young talent that may prove to be the best solutions we can find at certain positions. We owe it to our organization and those individuals to give them enough runway to demonstrate that they can be solutions. Very recently, there were very few people thinking Kerry Carpenter was going to be a solution for us. He is a solution for us, which is a good reminder that we got to be patient with young players, but we also have to give them opportunities to come up here and demonstrate to him that they can be solutions at positions moving forward. We're going to be mindful of that throughout the offseason. Yeah, I mean, I think you've seen it developmentally this summer. We're trying to make all the pieces fit together. You want those decisions to be hard. At the reserve list, deciding who to protect and who not to protect, you want it to be hard. It doesn't make it easy. I mean, it doesn't make it fun, but you want it to be hard. We've done some things developmentally to try to open up paths. Justice Bigby, I just talked about, has been playing a lot of outfield. There's a reason why he's playing a lot of outfield, because our first baseman seems like he hits a homer every night, so we got to find more flexibility there. Jace Young is going to play third base at the Fall League. That's going to be really important for us to see how all these pieces are going to fit together. We're going to keep pushing on that, in the minor leagues. We're going to try to explore every opportunity to add some versatility to help all the pieces fit together and to give him really, really hard decisions about which 9 guys he's going to run out against every starting pitcher. And I also want to give him really tough decisions about, if he's going to pinch hit, which one? I want a deep bench where he has a lot of options to find those matchups that helped us, play really well for long stretches this summer. So we're going to keep doing that. And yeah, the decisions are going to be hard this offseason, but I hope every offseason they're hard.
For Scott and AJ, just considering everything going on under the hood, obviously you guys are putting a lot of work there, but progress this year, kind of the state of the division, playoffs next year, be a realistic expectation for you guys?
Look at me. I felt it. So progress this season. So I think the encouraging part, and I've talked about this all summer, is the patience that's needed to see a player get better or see a player troubleshoot through some rough times, or and then come out of it looking back, going, man, I'm better today than I was yesterday, right? So we look at Tork. That's a very easy conversation that we talked about him all the time and what he needed to do to be a middle of the order bat. And so as he kind of quietly went from the latter third of the batting order to the middle part, his process improved. When you look at what, obviously Riley, we've got to keep him away from various things that seem to get him banged up. But his continual development as a bat that's targeted every single night, that when the opposing manager and the opposing pitching coach look at our lineup and they're circling him, he got as tough of matchups as anybody that when he was active. Carp, obviously, being able to play outfield. We all know Miguel was retiring. We all know the DH spot was going to finally be relieved of a singular player, and now maybe we could utilize that a little differently. Still important for Carp to play in the outfield and get better as an outfielder and not mortgage runs whenever the ball is hit to that section of the outfield. He did that. So those things, the progress of being able for Matt Vierling to go from third base to left field to center field in the same game and be equally as impactful, very important. You know, when we came into the spring, Andy Ibanez was trying to make our team as a third baseman because that was the position we all had targeted, including myself, is like, what are we going to do at third base? We didn't put Andy at second base till he gets called up, and all of a sudden he became a plus second baseman and allowed the Veerling move to be made because Ibanez wasn't just playing third base. So the progress, I think, mentally for our team, understanding how many use the roster, how many use the bullpen, how I'm going to try to maximize people's strengths, pitch hitting at, which in my career has been the most I've ever done this season, was a way to try to get as many wins as we could at the end of the season, which is still not enough in our eyes, but it's progress. That I'm really proud of. I've been also steadfast as the manager to be cautious on celebrating, moral victories or these feel-good stories that can distract you from, like, we're just to this point now, we need to get to the next point to be a realistic threat. I will always enter the spring preaching to a team, you need to win as many games as you can. When we sort it out, if we've won the most, we're going to be a playoff team. Making predictions a day after the last day of the season is not something I'm ever going to do, but I can appreciate that the standard here, and it certainly hasn't been felt in this city in a long time. The city deserves a playoff team. We're trying to build towards that. On this date, I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but the tone behind the scenes is always going to be find ways to improve, find ways to get more wins. This isn't, we won every division series this season against the opponent. That's progress. Didn't get us to win the division yet. So the goal is always going to be the same. We need to keep working to get there. But I'm not in the prediction game, but I am in the standards game. And our standards will be high enough, our expectations will be high enough once we reconvene in Lakeland.
You referenced the Central. When you look at your record within the division, and you look at where the other teams are in their cycles in the division, is there an opportunity there that might is kind of unique?
Well, look, they don't give you anything for that. So, like, there's nothing to be gained for that other than total wins. Like, you got to win more games if you want to factor in. So I think what that does show a young team, an emerging team, is that we can stand up for ourselves against teams that have been more successful in recent years or have been at the top of this division in recent years. But they don't anoint you a playoff team until you have enough wins. So you got to beat everybody. And then with the new schedule, you got to literally beat everybody. That, I think, is the message to a team. Do you need to be good in your division? Absolutely. Can you win your division and not win every season series in your division? The Twins just did that. So yes, you got to total up as many wins as you can. Get them from whoever you can. The more you can play, better you can play your division. Good foundation, but not the answer.
Scott McGee's contract's coming up. Do you anticipate a similar payroll, or will you be asked to make cuts, or where do you think that'll stand?
Yeah. I understand that there's going to be a lot of questions about the payroll number, spending, resources, all of that. Respectfully, I don't think that's necessarily the right question here. Like, I feel like we have plenty of resources. We have plenty of flexibility. For me, the question is, what's the path to contention? We rewind several months ago. I was sitting here and I was talking about the path to contention involves stacking as many good baseball decisions as we possibly can. That hasn't changed. The quicker we do that, is the quicker we're going to be an annual contender in this division. So, when I think about the offseason, I think it's important to remind ourselves, like, there aren't any shortcuts to contention. The recent history in this game will tell you that some organizations have either overestimated their proximity to contention, or they have tried to take a shortcut to contention by spending heavily in free agency, and it hasn't worked. It hasn't pushed them forward. In fact, in some cases, it set them back. And so, when I think about what we're doing here in this organization, like, we can spend to complement a core. We can't spend to build a core. That's not a viable strategy in this market. We are going to, as I said earlier, we are going to walk the line of being active in free agency and trade to find outside additions that can help us without blocking our young players. What that means in terms of what our total payroll number is, I don't know yet. I need to certainly do all our work with our front office on our evaluations of free agency, figure out which opportunities actually fit us, and then also prepare ourselves to be opportunistic in trade. The trade market is very difficult to forecast because you don't know what, the other 29 teams are doing. But right now, this month is going to be important for us to position ourselves to identify opportunities to get better via trade and make sure that we're prepared to press the button when we see something we like. I understand I didn't necessarily answer your question. I don't have an answer to your question, but I feel like we have all the resources we need to make this team better if we see opportunities to do it.
When it comes to complementing that core, where can that core be most unique complement?
Yeah, I mean, our core isn't finished. We're off to a great start. I talked about the middle of the order threats that we have that are going to be here for a long time. Anyone who watched any Mud Hen or Seawolves games, especially in the second half, you can see pieces that have a chance to be a part of our core moving forward. We have to let those pieces grow within the organization and have a pathway to real opportunity at this level, which makes our job really hard this winter. For instance, like Jace is going to play third base in the fall league. He's been taking ground balls for 6 weeks there, and it's looked really good at third base. Like, I believe he can play third base, but we have to actually watch him play third base. I know he can play second base, and then Colt is another of the many players that we're talking about here who has played predominantly third base through the minor leagues. He's been playing a lot of second. It looks good at second, but the game's faster at this level. So, we have to make investments in all of these players to make sure that what they're doing in the minor leagues will actually translate and give him dependable options when he's writing up a lineup card. So it's really hard to forecast. It's going to be one of the really challenging questions for us this year. But we're prepared to be active and try to find pieces that will fit in both with what we already have and what's coming.
You've referenced in the past a willingness to extend some of these younger core players, Torkelson, Schuble, et cetera. Are we at a point now this offseason where that becomes more of a real conversation?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this in spring training. Like our stance on that hasn't really changed. We are always open-minded to extending young players who have demonstrated that they can be a part of this. Fortunately for us, unfortunately for you guys, like those are just going to happen behind closed doors because it's just really not fair to comment on the specific negotiations that are or are not happening. I just hope that we can get to a place where we can find players that we really want to extend and get it done and then announce it to you guys and talk about how excited we are. So that's about as well as I can answer that question. Yeah, we've talked a lot with Casey. There have been some bright spots recently. Him hitting 97 in a live BP was pretty exciting to watch with him. Consistent with what AJ just talked about, we view yesterday as a false deadline for our rehab players too. This month of October is going to be important. We are going to try to keep pushing with our rehab players to make sure that we can get them as close to a regular offseason as possible. So with Casey, we're gonna keep working with him throughout the month and hope that we can get to a place where he's just having a normal offseason and he can show up to Lakeland like all the other starting pitching options. We will consistently share medical updates with you guys throughout the winter. I know you're going to be focused on Casey, but we have other players that we plan to share updates with you on. But we are treating yesterday as sort of a fake deadline in that our rehab efforts are going to continue through the end of the season and try to get to a place at the end of October where we can send these guys off to have a normal offseason. Yeah, The primary reason he's going to the fall league is to add more innings. He had the back injury that slowed him down at the beginning of the season. Quick tangent. He's a pretty good example of a guy who got a lot better this summer. We really challenged him to dominate the strike zone. We really challenged him directly that his stuff is better than a lot of the hitters he's facing. He should be able to outstuff hitters. He should be able to get ahead quickly and put them away quickly. And the run he was on in West Michigan and then finishing in Erie is pretty remarkable in terms of how many bats he was missing and how few walks he was giving up. Like when we talk about dominating the strike zone, that's exactly what we're talking about. We need to give him a solid base of innings that he can build upon for next year. He's still a young player. He hasn't really pitched all that much due to the injuries. Whether or not he is on the doorstep of a call-up next year, ultimately it's my decision, but it's kind of his decision too, how good he's going to be next year and how quickly he's going to move and how effectively he's going to continue to dominate the strike zone against better hitters is ultimately going to make the decision. Players don't totally promote themselves, but they get pretty close to promoting themselves with their performance and how effectively they're taking the development adjustments we're sharing with them and bringing them into games. And, what a great summer for Jackson, and we're looking forward to him continuing it in the fall league.
Talk about how thinking maybe has changed on young pitchers and inning increases for next year, that seems like it's become a little more individualized versus there's a set rule of plus 25% per year last year.
Yeah, I personally have never believed in identifying a concrete cap or target or limit or however you want to describe it. What we are moving towards as an organization medically is finding the best opinions we can for individual ailments, doing as much research as we possibly can to understand out of the entire population of people who have had these types of injuries, what lies ahead? What can we learn from, similar players who've had, different injuries or shortened seasons or whatever? And the last one, which is the most important, is we're talking to the players. So after each start, AJ is grabbing them and talking to them about how they feel. Are you ready for your next bullpen? Is there any treatment we can give you? Or is there anything we can proactively head off in terms of, preventative maintenance, things like that? With all of these guys, whether it's Casey or Jackson or anyone coming off of less than a full complement of innings, we are going to have an idea of what we're going to do with them, but it's going to be written in pencil, and we're going to keep changing it based on how the player is feeling, how they're performing, the things that we learn about similar players who have gone through similar issues. And at every turn, we're going to make the best decision we can instead of, rushing out judgment of in the 2024 season, they're only going to pitch 132 and a third innings. It just doesn't make sense for us as an organization to have these grand proclamations of this is what we believe in for every single pitcher, no matter the circumstance or no matter their individual skill or ability.
Scott, I'm sure you're expecting an Austin Meadows question, but you guys have been very supportive. There's also the reality that he hasn't played much in the past 2 years. How do you see his situation?
Yeah, I haven't talked to Austin in a few months. I need to talk to Austin in October. We're going to talk to him, and we're going to explore what the path forward is. I don't have any answers on that. I hope he's doing well. I got to reconnect with him, and that's going to be a priority for us in October.
Yeah, it's a good question because I think there's I think a lot of times people will look at a player who emerges in the big leagues and go right to the numbers on the board, which is easy, or they will go to a certain hand placement, or they will go to a certain stance, or they will go to whether he's closed off or not, or how far away he is from the plate. All those things factor in. I think what Tork did to take the next step forward is connect everything that he does in the cage, in the weight room, in the training room, in the dugout together. And so it was things that he was doing, as he was training was starting to impact what his setup was like. His setup then led to the decision-making, and decision-making then led to the picking the right pitches. And then the process of review allowed him to get through that grind. And I know it's easy at the end when he hit a bunch of homers in the last couple months to say, oh, there it clicked. But it was actually him getting through that time where he was hitting the ball 100 miles an hour or more and getting out and just returning to the dugout. And the last thing a hitter wants to hear is me say, hey, man, way to swing it. And he's like, it doesn't matter, I'm out anyway. That all of those things are tied in together to where he was able to start to, get his body right, train his body right, get himself prepared to be consistent in the batter's box, make good decisions. That led to better swing path. That led to better results. Like any one of those things that gets off, and a hitter can spiral into that, that negative performance. Torque was very diligent. He was that way when he was not swinging the bat maybe as hot as he could. He was that way in the middle. He was that way at the end when he started to get to his power a little bit. So that is a great foundation for him to understand. You get 600 plus plate appearances. That's a lot. To play 159 games, that's a lot. There's going to be some good days, some bad days. The more consistent he can be, especially given his vibe, his approach, his mentality, the better the performance got. He can still get a lot better, both offensively and defensively, and we're going to keep pushing him in areas to draw that out of him even more.
Scott, Spencer Turnbull still has a future in this organization, and if so, what does he need to do to bounce back from this?
Yeah, we are going to have an exit interview with Spencer, and we expect him to prepare as a starter this offseason and show up to Lakeland ready to compete for a job in our rotation. You guys have heard me talk many times about how talented Spencer is. We've seen flashes of it in this organization of what he can do, and we gotta find a way to get the best version out of Spencer. And it starts with reflecting on the season and then planning for the offseason and making sure he shows up in Lakeland, ready to compete for a job.
Scott, can you walk us through the waiver claim process for Holton? What you saw, what you liked, and what you want out of him at that point?
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but we pay attention to waivers every single day. We're consistent with everything I always talk about. We're always trying to find ways to get better. When the D-backs signed Chafin and then designated Holton, we immediately had an interest in him. As you guys have seen, he does a lot of things really well. He's a very dependable strike thrower. He has 5 distinct shapes that he can use to command the entire strike zone, so he can attack different hitters in different ways. There's some deception that comes with his delivery that helps his entire mix play up, and the way he sequences and commands all of those shapes to both righties and lefties gives him a chance to not only be an effective reliever, but also go multiple innings. He's used him multiple innings, several times throughout the season, and not every reliever can do that. I think the combination of the pure stuff, the strike throwing, and the deception that he had in Arizona was what really intrigued us initially, and he got a lot better here. The slider that he is throwing now has a lot more sweep than it had before. The way he is sequencing some of his pitches here, and the way that he's using his body to create deception, makes him someone that we're really excited to have here. As I said from the outset, take a look at his season. It's among the best in all of baseball, and I think that's a combination of timing, that the fact that we were able to claim him on waivers, but also investment from the organization in him and investment from him in himself. Like, he's done a lot of things throughout spring training and the early part of the season to not only make himself better, but to earn a really significant role. I mean, you saw how AJ used him down the stretch. When he first got on this team, we were not using him in that role at all, and he earned every bit of it. I'm proud of all of our players that earn significant roles, but I'm especially proud of the ones like Tyler Holden, Andy Ibanez, Kerry Carpenter, the guys who seemingly come out of nowhere and demonstrate like, hey, I can really compete at this level, and I can earn and maintain a really significant role here. And so it's one of the many reasons I'm proud of this year, and really excited to see what Tyler can do next year too.
Both of you guys, how does Javier Báez get better?
Yeah, I will start by saying, and I've said this to you guys before, and I say it because I mean it, the work is good. The work is good behind the scenes. You guys don't always get to see it, but he is working really hard behind the scenes. I think there are some things that we can change about his work, about the specific things that he's working on, to make some adjustments that help him both at the plate and in the field. But we haven't done it yet. Like, we haven't gotten the best version out of Javi. We have to do that this offseason. We have some things we're gonna share with him in the exit interview, and we have some new ways we feel like we can support him this offseason. But it's going to take an organizational effort in Javi. But the best thing, the best takeaway that we can have here from Javi is, like, he's really motivated. You saw his quotes the other day. We see that behind the scenes a lot. We see him working really hard, and it starts with that. We can't get anywhere unless we have real investment from the player himself in himself, and we have that. We just got to find new ways to reach him.
Yeah, I'll echo that, and also one of the reasons I'm encouraged with Javi is actually the fact that he did talk to you guys about his struggles and about his where he's at right now, because that gives him a really good place to build from. And as he looks around the field, we're going to get younger, and that doesn't mean worse. It just means he's going to fulfill a role of just be our shortstop. Be the best version of you that you can be. He's got to get better in a lot of areas. We're going to challenge him. We've always been very direct with him. He's been very direct back. He's engaged to attack some of these things. And my hope was, like, we try to lift the burden of being Javi Báez off of him. The part of that is, high played player. Part of that is the All-Star. Part of that is El Mago. Part of that is everything that's about, other than Miguel, nobody gets more attention on this team from by our dugouts, from fans, to every time that he steps on the field than Javi. And moving him down in the order, trying to some emerging younger players. My hope is that he just goes and plays shortstop, be a better defender. Obviously, we got to still attack the offensive profile. Being after 30 years old, he's got to adapt, and I feel like he can adapt to the challenges that are created by him getting a year older and being surrounded by a different group. Sometimes every day we might have a different second baseman or a different third baseman next to him, given the matchup. So he left in a really good place. I know there's a ton of scrutiny on him. There's a ton of pressure on him. There's a ton of expectations on him. And our hope is this offseason, as we 1 year into this group of this hitting department we talked about, our programs will start to see the gains that he can have to be a more productive player. Yeah, it's hard when players struggle. It's just so you know, like, me as a manager or coach, we're not mad at him. Like, that's the biggest emotional difference between being on the inside and being on the outside. Like, we're encouragers by nature, but trying to find solutions for him. But it's hard whenever he says he can't see the ball, or he's not seeing the ball well. Like, that's not something that is necessarily a quick fix. And so the emotional roller coaster that comes with him, I think sometimes as a whole on the outside, you start looking at players, or looking at me, or looking at coaches, and if you don't know the person, or you don't know the personality, it's hard to gauge their reaction sometimes. And so I think I think that the hard part is watching him, really endure the self-induced pressure and scrutiny, let alone the external pressures. But it doesn't stop us from trying to find solutions. It doesn't stop Javi from interacting. It doesn't stop. He's not in his corner of his locker disengaged. And the effort that's going in to try to find solutions, just because we haven't been fast at finding them, isn't non-existent and driven from Javi. And I think that is, something I want to keep saying. Now, trying harder doesn't necessarily satisfy people that where the expectations are super high. But it does give hope that there are solutions out there and there are ways to surround him with a different way of doing things. Do I think we can just try harder again next spring? No, we got to make some changes. And I think he knows that, and I think he's aware. He's not disengaged. I think that's a really important ingredient for our fans to know, and his teammates certainly know it, that we can bring a better version to Lakeland in the spring.
A general question about the catcher position. Jake, saw Jake's development this year, which was huge. But is there a gap between the top level, like AAA down? Like, is there a next guy coming? You have to kind of find something from the outside to kind of fill in there at the upper minor league level, because it's maybe some slower development for some of the guys.
You want me to tackle that?
You're the catcher.
I mean, ex-catcher. Yeah, finally, we agree on something. First off, again, I know we're grabbing as much optimism as we can on especially coming out of this weekend. But what a return for Jake Rogers. Offensively, 20-plus homers, to defensively, to getting through the season healthy, which is not a given, certainly at that position, because the toughest guys play catcher. So I love what Jake did this year as far as getting himself, back into the flow of being on the team. Now, I know everybody wants to anoint starter and back up, and I understand that. And Jake has earned the lion's share of the catching, of the games for the catcher. And the way he controls the running game, the way he's interacting, we're continuing to push him in other areas of the job. We're going to keep talking about framing. We're going to keep talking about game calling. All things that he can be a very stable part of. And all kidding aside, if we invest in all the pitching that we've invested in, if we talk about the double-digit number of starting pitching options and the growth of Tyler Holton or Jason Foley or Alex Lang or more players on the rise, we have to have stability behind the plate. That is a crucial partnership in getting the most out of that group of pitchers we're excited about. Now factor in Carson Kelly, which is a little bit more not as streamlined because there's decisions to be made, and Carson comes in and we got an evaluation period. He's a really good catcher as well. You look at what's going on in the minor leagues, and again, to throw some names out, where Ryan Cienko and Ryan Garko obviously is our head, but Cienko's done a very good job of developing a great program underneath, and so I think the gap is only the unknown. Like, Dylan Dingler's making great progress in AAA. He just hasn't been here yet. He hasn't gotten the opportunity. He's got some things to work on to get better, but when Post came up, a lot of our conversations were about, probably assumed to be about Colt and Jay Hen and different guys. I actually spent a lot of time with him on Dingler. And you go down to different levels. We have depth in that position people don't know about yet. It is a critical position to continue to develop the whole position, but it probably starts with obviously Jake being stable. We'll figure out what else is happening at the major league level, where Dingler fits in. You can never have too many catchers, and it's important that we value that as part of the run prevention, aspect of our team.
Scott, did you see enough good things from Carson Kelly in this month or so that you're prepared to commit to him for next year, or is that still an open decision over the next month or so?
Yeah, it's very much an open decision or open question for us. We're going to spend a lot of time on it. The only thing I would add to what AJ said is, not everything that is measurable is valuable. And then conversely, not everything that is valuable is measurable. There's a lot of things that we can measure with our catchers. They've done a really good job framing, stealing strikes, helping our pitchers that way. both those guys can really throw. We saw that, especially in the month of September. Jake has developed as, one of the better power hitters behind the plate in the game today. And we still have belief in Carson's ability to tap into the power that he showed as a younger player. But when I talk about, things that are valuable that are not measurable it's exactly what he's talking about. The ability to handle a staff, the ability to help young players make adjustments. I thought that our catchers did a really good job with Sawyer Gibson-Long. Sometimes, hitters on another team were very clearly, coming into a game with a specific attack plan, and he was making adjustments. And sometimes those adjustments weren't coming from Sawyer; they were coming from behind the plate. That helped him, put together a really, really nice September. He took a big step forward. You've heard me talk about his development, some of the things that we added to his mix, but the ability to have dependable catchers behind the plate who we can trust to help usher these young pitchers into the big leagues, help them make adjustments in the big leagues, then also help, the more veteran pitchers make adjustments in the game is super valuable to us. I don't know how to measure it at all, but we pay attention to it. We talk about it all the time before games, after the games. And so whatever we end up with as a catching unit, a huge priority for us is going to be how they manage the staff, how they call games, and how they make adjustments to what hitters are trying to do to our pitchers, because our path forward to contention has to get the absolute most out of our pitchers, and the sort of gatekeeper of that is whoever's catching them.
Yeah, no, I love where we're at. And I said this to our team in Oakland, the day we were eliminated, that I've never been more encouraged to be a Tiger, and obviously I've had different experiences over the course of those 3 years. I mean, this year feels like my first year, given, new boss structure, new things coming into the organization, new emphasis on different things, and just creating a work relationship with the president of baseball ops to try to get us to contention. So I've never been more encouraged to be here, to be the manager. I know these are not easy jobs to get. They're not easy jobs to keep. And I'm especially proud of where we're getting to with our players, to where they understand me at a deeper level. We're all in the trenches together, and the culture that we're creating. Those are all really important things, but when it comes to being the Detroit Tigers manager, I'm thrilled, I'm proud, I'm honored, and I know I have a lot of expectations on me to do my part to be better. We're not where we want to get to. We're trying to get there as fast as possible. I hope that our fans, our front office, our ownership understand the positive step forward that we took on the field this year. Very important, but I wouldn't want to be anywhere else.
You want to take this one?
So Scott thinks I'm great. He especially likes it when I come in after the game and have a few choice words for certain aspects of the game, and perhaps some disagreements that I'm proven right. I definitely tell him about it after a game.
Well, hopefully you can see, it's been a great first year between us. I can confidently say that he has made me better. I am much better at this job now after the relationship that I've had with him, after the challenging conversations that we've had before and after every game, after, the moments in which he challenged me to think differently about our team, think differently about ways to get better, think differently about, who to give opportunity to based on, the different perspective that he has in the clubhouse. I'd like to say that I made him better too. He'll never admit it. But
fine. You made me better.
No, again, there are a lot of things to be proud of in this organization, and I'm very proud that we have the right field general leading our team right now. I will also say, what an unbelievable weekend, and I think, you'll never admit this, but I will share it publicly. Like, I don't think people realize how much pressure is on him throughout that weekend. You get one shot to, write the final chapter of a remarkable Hall of Fame career. There are a lot of judgment calls throughout a game. There are a lot of judgment calls about, we send him out to first base. Like, when do I take him out? How do I take him out? How do I make it special? And, upon reflection last night and this morning, like, yesterday, that was Miggy at his best. That was AJ at his best. That was this organization at its best. And that was the city at its best. And it made me feel really good after, a long season that was very challenging in a bunch of ways, that we closed it out in the right way, and we sent Miggy off in a first-class way. And he was a huge part of it, even if he wasn't front and center.